Holy shike, let's talk about pigs. Here's your host of the Pork Podcast, Jennifer Shike.
There's just something about the story behind the story. And as a storyteller, I'm always searching for ways to give readers just a little bit more. And that's what the Pork Podcast is all about, bringing you stories of the people and the progress of the pork industry. I'm Jennifer Shike. Let's go find just a little bit more. When I first met Doug Hankus, I just knew. I knew that he was going to go on to make a mark in this world. I knew with his charisma and the innovative ideas he always had going on in his head, combined with his contagious personality and his ability to strategize quickly, that he would find ways to make agriculture just a little bit better. So I'm so excited to welcome Doug Hankus to the Pork Podcast today and be able to just share a little bit of his story with our listeners.
Thanks, Jennifer. Excited to be here today.
Well, we met a long time ago. We won't talk about the years. At your Uncle Ray Hankus's pig sale when I was a student at Blackhawk College East Campus, and you were in high school, I think, at the time.
Yep.
Don't tell me junior high. Let's just say high school. And it was easy for me to see how much you love the swine industry. So tell us, how did you get your start in the swine industry?
Well, it's really fun because I enjoy being here today, and it's great talking to Jennifer. And for me, pork, swine, but really for me, pork was the key intro. My parents owned a meat plant in Galesburg, Illinois, Thrushwood Farms. There was a pig farm in Fairbury, Illinois, and they took the pigs from the pig farm to the meat plant in Galesburg. And I always joke that back in the 70s, they were farm to table before farm to table was cool. And from my perspective, got to work in the retail store, be around it. And then I would spend my summers in Fairbury at the pork farm. And, they had a show pig operation and a boar stud, and they were one of the earlier ones in that space. And so that's where the passion started in. And, fast forward to where you and I ended up meeting at a bread guild sale in Fairbury, Illinois. And so it's been a lot of fun over the years, and it's really come full circle for us now because we have a few sows at my dad's house. So it's the passion's been there for a long time, and we love livestock. So.
Well, we have so many ways that our lives have crisscrossed, which is kind of fun too. And, I guess like just fast forwarding from the time that we met, you were very active in FFA. You showed pigs all over with my husband's family. And you actually went to the University of Illinois around the same time as my sister-in-law, Ellen. And you guys were close friends. And so I knew you from all of that too. I kind of got to know another side of you. But then the fun part is you both married Homans. And so even though we aren't related, your family is like a second circle of family to our family. Our daughters are both 11. They're born just a few weeks apart. And even though, they're not cousins, they in their mind are basically family to each other. And so
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that we get to like walk through life with you guys. And, I think family has always been really important in your life. So can you share how your family has been so integral in getting you to where you are today?
Just going back to the pork farm in Fairbury, my Uncle Ray and Aunt Ellen were like a second set of parents. And, the lessons you learn in agriculture, I don't think you can replace in any other space. And there's great activities out there. There's sports, there's arts and crafts and all kinds of things, debate, skillathons, all those spaces out there. But for me, our family was deeply rooted in agriculture. My dad had a large family. My grandpa on my mom's side raised purebred Hampshire hogs. And so as a little kid, when my mom and dad were working at the meat plant, Grandma and Grandpa Stiegel had us at the Hampshire farm. And when I wasn't at the Hampshire farm in Williamsfield, I was in Fairbury. And so always treated with a lot of respect. That was a key thing in our world. And it's a life lesson that I hope to convey to my daughter and as we progress forward. But we grew up in agriculture. And I think that the really unique part about the world today is you can be interested in agriculture, specifically pork production, or you may marry into it. You may take a class at a university or in high school. And I think there's so many more avenues for youth to get involved with pork production, and we need that, and we need to continue to show how exciting the food and pork space is.
Hmm. Well, and that's one of the other ways our lives crisscross too. We both you were still young enough to be a part of the National Junior Swine Association in those very early formative years when we got things going. And I know that you were quite the showman back in the day, and you had a lot of success in the show ring. As you look back on that time period of your life, what do you think were some of the greatest lessons that you learned while showing livestock that have stuck with you today?
Well, and I owe you for one of them, and I'm going to touch on the NJSA specifically. When I stood in that room, and with all those people that were in that room, and you were one of the key people, obviously, that were bringing together the Junior Swine Association. I'm still friends with a lot of those people today. I was just on the phone with AJ Jenner this morning, and and I was looking through Heimer's set of gilts that they have coming on. He's got a unique format coming up, and so I think that's the lesson that really comes out of showing livestock. I think the other thing for me is it was just a work ethic thing. I was a get up early in the morning kid, and my dad used to always give me a hard time and say the morning's half over at 9 a.m. So let's have a full day of it. And so that piece of it really got built into me, and I think that's where this whole industry and showing really gets you going. But for me, it's the friends. I mean, the project for me, we always talk about, is the project the kid or is the pig? In my world is pork, because and I take a different view than a lot of people, because we ultimately, the message of that we're producing pork and showing, or beef or whatever it is, but that's important to me. And then what we get out of it is we get great young adults when they're done with the project. And I think that's the piece that I keep trying to hammer home to our daughter. I mean, when you raise them, livestock are dead stock. And so we have to be cognizant of the really hard life lessons that come along with raising, whether it's a show animal or a barn full of commercial pigs.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And, so you went on when you were at the University of Illinois. Let's talk a little bit about that chapter in your life. What are some of the things that you were engaged in, and how did that ultimately, set the course for your career path?
Yeah, I think one thing that was really interesting for me, and especially after I had met you and several of the individuals, my parents were very adamant that they wanted us boys to have a 4-year education, and I think in that time there was a variety of reasons for it. I actually was very interested in trying to figure out how to stay in the show pig space. But what I learned very quickly is just because of my upbringing in the meat industry, I had a lot of exposure to the show pig world, but really my upbringing in the meat industry, I found very quickly that I just continued to gravitate to that. I did meats judging, and that kind of led me into my time at the University of Illinois. I went to Illinois with zero interest in coming home. I was one of those kids. I was not going back home. I was going to go work for a large meat company, and that was what I really was passionate about. I wanted to climb the ladder, learn as much as I could, and what I was very fortunate is I had a professor at the University of Illinois, and Dr. McKeith, that Floyd McKeith, that was really, really influential in my life. And I think that the thing that he kept telling me is you got to get away from home. You can't go back home. You got to go get away from home. When I was younger, and obviously Dr. Carr is someone that as well. On the meats judging side of it, and so for me, what Illinois did for me and what the university experience did for me is it exposed me to a lot of large companies. And I think that was where my interest really was. And somewhere as I was going through the university, it kind of shifted and changed. And that's what really was interesting to me. I found a real passion for the charcuterie world. So your salamis, your snack sticks, your jerkies. University of Illinois is not really known for that. It's a fresh pork school, or a bacon school, if you will, at that time. But I was really interested and I actually had a couple professors uh, in different classes that just there was just neat things that were happening in genetics and some of the advanced sciences classes, where it just kept sparking these little bits of debate. And so I really got interested in the science piece of the meat industry, relative to how do we produce things better, faster? How do we make things taste old school like charcuterie salamis without making them the same traditional ways, which at the time in the U.S. weren't always available too. And so, kind of fast forwarded through, did an internship, and I was very fortunate that I have a pretty funny story that I get to share with my parents about how I decided to come home, and so it was a lot of fun. So met a ton of people. That was really the key.
Hmm. And I think that was such great advice. That'll always stand out to me as part of your story. That was so like great parenting move. I feel like your parents did so many really clever things and really smart things as they brought you in. So, you went back to so tell me when you went back to
Yep.
Thrushwood, what was that like? Tell me a little bit about some of those stories that we're both smiling about, because I
Yeah.
think everyone
Yeah.
needs to hear this.
I think I was I went in. I think I give my senior year. So I met my now wife, and was very excited about what about where our paths were headed in life. And again, we knew a lot of the same people as you hit on earlier. But probably the most impactful thing that happened to me is I had set up interviews with some large companies my senior year, and I had reached out to my parents, and I'd gone back home the weekend before, and I said, "Gosh, I really think we make great products. We just got to get them to more consumers." And so I asked my mom and dad. I said, "Hey, I'd really like to come home. I know our business isn't huge. My mom and dad talked a lot about there's a difference between earning a living and being happy earning a living and making money to be able to reinvest in the business. And they had three boys, and I was the first one going through college. And at that point, they had two in college and another one close behind. And so I said, I'd really like to come home. And they said, well, we just don't know. Why don't you come home this weekend and we'll talk about it? And so, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to jazz this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and bring a resume with me, and mom and dad would probably chuckle at me. And I got home and we talked for a little bit at the plant. We kind of walked through the plant and talked about what I enjoyed, what they thought was important. And then that night they're like, hey, let's go to dinner. And let's seriously really just talk about it. And I said, okay. And I thought, well, gosh, that was just weird how mom and dad said that. And so I just decided I'd throw on some judging khakis and judging boots and a jacket, and I would go ahead and bring my resume. And we went to a little bar and grill in town, and I sat down and I gave him the resume, and we had an interview. And I didn't expect it to go that way. I just thought we'd talk as a family, and it became an interview. And I very quickly, tried not to use mom and dad, and so we sat down and we get done. They said, well, thank you. And I thought it was weird they wanted us to drive separate. And so I said, well, thank you. And they said, well, we will talk to you about it later. Your mom and I are going to need till Monday. My dad said, your mom and I are going to need till Monday to think about it. And it's only 5 miles back home, but I drove back home and I thought to myself, gosh, that was kind of weird. I didn't expect that to go the way it is. Is there a chance my parents aren't going to hire me? And so I actually decided at 8 o'clock at night that, it's Friday night, but I'm just going to go ahead and just go back to school. And I called my mom and dad and said, hey, I think I'm going to pack my stuff up and go back to school. And they're like, we think that'd be good too. You should think about it this weekend if you really want to do this. And mom and I need to have a conversation if we think we want to bring you into the business. And so I was just flabbergasted, and I was very fortunate. I went back home went back to school and talked to my roommate and who's involved in the pork industry from a showing perspective now. And and I just said, man, I don't know if my parents are going to hire me. And so Monday morning, my dad calls me at 9 o'clock in the morning, like you said, and he said, well, here's the deal. We'd like to offer you a job. The pay's not great, but it's what we think we can afford. There's a couple rules, and the first rule is we are Jim and Kay Henkes, your boss. We are not mom and dad at work. And he said the second rule is you can't make any changes to the business for a year. You can't bring anything up. You have to be an employee for a year. And I'll tell you, in the moment, I was probably pretty frustrated. I know I was frustrated, but it was probably the single best thing that ever happened to me. And even to the day, we would have customers. I'd walk through the retail and store, and I'd say, "Hey Jim, hey Kay, I need to talk to you," and I'd get scolded by them. Well, that's mom and dad. That's not Jim and Kay. But we really treated Thrushwood Farms as a business, and that was important to all of us. And I think it was important to our employees as well, that we took it that serious and that we've had that growth. And I've been fortunate now to have, an employee that still works for me today that's in charge of technical sales for our company, that started off as an intern. She was at Illinois. And I mean, just to be able to watch those careers grow. And I don't think that if they wouldn't have said, hey, this is a business and you have to treat it like a business, I don't know that we would have had the growth that we had from that perspective.
Mhm. I just love that story. And I also think, like the things that you're saying about how it impacted the people you worked with, that's so true. So
Yeah. Yeah. No,
super cool.
it's for me, it's tough because, we had a lot of 20-year people. I mean, there was only,
Yeah.
I don't want to act like there was a lot of people, but we were a close knit family, if you will. I mean, there was 11 of us and 3 of them were mom, dad, and Doug. So there weren't a lot of employees at the time. I mean, it's pretty wild to think today we have just under 1,000, but it's been an interesting thing, but it was really, really important for me they are the bosses. They own the business. And I think that people respected that.
We will be right back after this message from our sponsor.
At United Animal Health, we all share a love for animals. We have devoted our lives to agriculture and to the well-being and productivity of animals. With our guiding principle to always have the best answer, we listen to the animal and let the animal tell us what works and what doesn't. We know that if the animal is healthy and productive, so is the producer, the consumer, and our communities. Learn more at unitedanh.com.
So, I mean, the business continued to grow, a lot of great things happening. I know, like, I'm going to be short on time with you, so I kind of want to fast forward. It's 2019, and your family makes a really tough decision to sell Thrushwood Farms to Western Smokehouse Partners. And that was a really big pivotal moment in all of your lives. Walk us through what happened.
Yeah, so early in 2019, Western Smokehouse team came and asked the question, hey, we're a growing business. They're private equity back now. Family was still involved, the Western family. But we want to expand. We want to find family businesses. We want to bring family businesses together. That's our model. Focus on snack stick production and continue to grow this better for you snack stick space. And so it was like, okay, we weren't ready as a family, frankly. And that was, February, March, about this time of year in 19. And we were in the middle of a large expansion in Galesburg, doubling the size of the facility. Dad and I designed and built it. And so fast forward, the fall comes along, and Matt Borman this time, who was the CFO at the time, who's now our CEO, came along and he said, hey, I know that, the current group came and gave you the pitch, but here's what I see. And he laid out a plan for me to kind of see the vision. And it was a real struggle because my wife and I's plan all along was to come home, grow the business, take over the family business, to continue to grow it. Lindsay had gotten out of the industry she was in. She had come back into the business at that time. We had roughly 50 employees, and we had a really good thing going. But my parents were ready to retire. And, who knew COVID was coming down the pipe, which ended up being a smart business decision for the company. But my mom and dad, and this is another good story, but my mom and dad sat through everything. We had a bunch of meetings. We had a lot of conversations. I was adamantly against it. I mean, just being honest, I was not happy. And they came into my office and they set a piece of paper down on my desk They had planned this vacation for years, that they were going to go to New Zealand and Australia for about 25 days or so. And they had signed the letter of intent to start the sale process. And they'd set it on my desk the night before they left. And they said, you have to send this in. And you don't have to send this in because we're telling you you have to do this. You have to be on board with this to make this work. And so, man, it was a tough weekend for my wife and I. I mean, we talked and we talked and we talked, and then finally on I think it was Sunday, I went into the office and I took the piece of paper and I scanned it and I sent it in, and it was a fast process after that. My wife and I went through the diligence process while my parents were overseas, and so we really did a lot of it, and I just really credit Lindsay and my parents for making that process go well. And 2 days before Christmas, in 19 on the 23rd, we sold the Western Smokehouse Partners. Started off the first of the year and hit the ground running, talking about expansion plans and investment in the facility and what's next. And so since that time, and I'll kind of lead into that, Jennifer, a little bit of where we're going now. At that time, it ended up being, we have a plant in Green Top, Missouri. We had Galesburg, Illinois. We ended up buying another family business in Springfield, Illinois, from Brad Taraski and his wife and his dad, Sky Snacks, and that got rolled into our business. And we're just continuing to grow, and it's all snack sticks at this point. It's all snack sticks with a few brands, and one of those brands is a heavy lean in on pork, and they just had continued to see that tremendous growth. And at that point, we were kind of turning our head around, and that 21 range after we'd gotten done with Springfield, and we're saying we need more. And so we fast forward to 22, we start the plans. We built a meat plant from scratch, and I was fortunate to head up that project in the company. But we built that project from idea to open in less than 12 months. And that plant's located in Burlington, Iowa. And then this last year in 24, in May, we purchased Golden Valley Natural from the Ball family. And they are that's our plant in Idaho now. And even with all this growth and all this excitement and all the team members now, like I said, we had 11 when I came home in 2004, and now we're just under 1,000 as a combined group of companies. Is really wild to think that currently we're building a 300,000 square foot plant in Mexico, Missouri. We're doubling the size of the original Thrushwood plant in Galesburg, adding 56,000 square feet. We're also building another plant in Galesburg, Illinois, 176,000 square foot plant in Galesburg, Illinois, dedicated for a customer. And so it's been an exciting time. We make about 2.5, 2.7 million snack sticks a day, depending on the product mix. And by this time next year, we'll make between 5 and 5.2 million snack sticks per day. And so it's been a wild growth story. And it's been a really interesting one, and it's exciting for me to see all of these careers that are being developed inside of our business right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of careers, I mean, your career has changed since when you started there. So you recently were promoted to Chief Operating Officer for Western Smokehouse Partners. So public congratulations to you. That's incredible what you've been able to do. How has your role shifted? What are you more focused on right now than you were when you started with the company?
Yeah, when I started with the company, it was really interesting because we had the two family businesses that were combined, and we were very different. I mean, I always joked that the modern Western Smokehouse Partners looks very different than the vision that a couple of dads that didn't know each other at the time had back in the 70s. And so, one of the things that Matt came to me and said is like, hey, we're going to have you start here in this ops piece of it. And, we just got to learn the business and figure out how to work together. I think that integration was so important in the beginning, and it wasn't all easy, and it never is. But we've put together a good playbook now for how to continue to grow. Very operations focused in the beginning. Now I get the opportunity to really be a manager of managers and really talk to team members that are driving initiatives in the company. And that's what I really love is I love teaching. I love talking about the products. I love helping solve problems. And I think that that's where I've always said this, that, the food industry is a great space. But now, R&D, technical sales, food safety and quality, and then operations now roll under me. And we've just got such a great team here. And it's a fun place to work. And we really do try to focus on making sure that we are making the best products and, just trying to win the day.
Why do you think that the snack stick and processed meat industry is so important to the pork industry right now? I mean, not just the pork industry, the meat industry, but how do you think that this can help drive opportunity for pork producers?
Absolutely. And portability is the real trick here. I mean, that's the piece of this puzzle that I think when we talk about, what's driving snack stick growth, what's driving it, it's really about portability. And I mean, you know how it is. Our lives are so busy and our kids are going all over the place. And the great part about a better for you snack stick, and I should probably define what is a better for you snack stick. So clean label, sometimes zero sugar, depending on flavor profile, no MSG, gluten free, those types of things. But things that taste good, that are shelf stable, that you can throw in a lunchbox and feel like, hey, my kid's going to get some protein, or I'm going to get some protein on the road. Is really what is driving that. Is just we're on the go. And I think that one of the things that's interesting, I'm not a big social media guy, but I do a little bit. And there's a trend going on right now on Snapchat where you put your picture of your grocery cart, and the number of times I see the products that we make in those grocery starts is awesome. I think when we think about pork, and we think about pork and portability, there's so many opportunities in the sandwich world with the on-the-go sandwiches, and lunch opportunities and snack sticks, whether it's 1 ounce, half ounce, 2 ounce. I think, and pork is such a good conduit of flavor. I think that's the real key, right? Is it's a great conduit of flavor, and it really brings a lot of uniqueness out in the seasonings and spices, because we don't use a lot of them in the products that we make. And so it's really important to make sure those tones hit, and pork's awesome for that.
Mhm. Well, and that just is right on par with what, National Pork Board is doing with their new promotions, talking about the flavor opportunities with pork. And I love that you say that and bring that up, because it's so true. And I'll have to admit, I am a huge fan of the teriyaki flavored snack sticks that you created. They're so good. They're one of my favorite snacks. And to that point, they're easy to eat. I feel like I'm eating something that's gives me a little boost of protein, and I'm supporting the pork industry, so I love those. But tell me, what's your favorite flavor?
Yeah, so you hit one of them. So I have two. So the teriyaki stick, because I worked so hard to make it, and it was so challenging to get it right, that it's one that I have a special place in my heart. And then there's one that is so there's just an original flavor, and it's kind of a baseline. We actually make a version of that's very custom for a company now, and the Fatty brand. And the only reason I bring it up is because that is a recipe. My dad was a 25, 26-year-old kid, goes to a meat convention, sits next to this German butcher, and the guy says, "What's your number one problem?" He's like, "I really want to have a great summer sausage." And the guy writes down on a piece of paper for him, like, "Here's a base of how you start all good summer sausages." And my dad made some really subtle tweaks to that, and it's really cool to know that that is the flavor base of what we kind of built sticks off of. And so just to know that it has 60 years of history to it, if you will, and then we still use that today, and it's just a great all-around product. So those original snack sticks are always hard to get around in my world because of where they come from.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Well, part of what I do in each of my podcasts is I try to talk to somebody who knows you to kind of get a little insight about you. So I had a lot of personal, connections, and thought, well, I'm gonna stay away from those to not cause any problems and start anything. Just kidding. But I decided to reach out to one of our, mutual friends, Dr. Tom Carr, who was one of your college professors and one of your meats judging team coaches. And here's what he has to say about you. He said, Doug is a highly intelligent young man that has a tremendous work ethic. He is very competitive and strives for excellence. Doug was and is very forward thinking, innovative, wanting to be on the cutting edge. In my opinion, he has always been willing to take risks, not in a careless way, but weighing the odds and then going for it. And I love that because that's exactly what my husband and I were saying. We were talking this weekend about getting ready for the podcast. And I was like, Doug is just, he's so like forward thinking and innovative. And Dan piped in and said, and he's willing to take risks, not stupid risks, but calculated risks. And then that's exactly what Dr. Carr said. Why do you think you've always been a little bit of a risk taker? And how do you think that's helped you find success in your career?
That it's very cool to hear that. So thank you for that. And thank you, Dr. Carr, if you listen to this. So I'll liken it a little bit to meats judging a little bit. So I always found that I can be very opinionated. I've learned to get better with it over time, but especially when I was younger. And so when we get into judging, I always felt like I had to take calculated risk, and I was willing to give up a point here or there to try to score big. And I think that it's probably the entrepreneurial R&D piece of me in life. I'll tell another really quick story. So I started a web design company in college, and I got tired of listening to all my roommates talk about how they didn't have enough easy to find resources for their ag education programs. And so I was like, well, I'm going to start this website. I'll start putting meat judging classes online. I'll put some livestock classes online. I'll just throw some of these on there. And then it started costing me money, and I'm a broke college kid. And so I decided to try to figure out some revenue around it. And so mom, dad, probably not real proud of this because they probably don't know. They've heard the story, but they probably don't realize it. I put a little bit of money on the credit card and started it and did the thing. And was fortunate it cash flowed and it moved forward. I just think that in life, you got to believe in yourself. And, in FFA, we hit on it earlier. We went to this conference and they said, hey, there's a bunch of this leadership conference. They have all these quotes everywhere. They said, we encourage you to kind of come up with your own quote, or you can grab a quote, but write it on a piece of paper, put it in your wallet. And every time you're having a hard day or every time you question yourself, bring it out. And I still to this day have in my wallet, excellence is to be expected, but you should expect excellence. And people always say, gosh, don't you have them backward in these things? And it's how I wrote it down that day. And I probably heard it from somewhere. So if I stole it from somebody, sorry. But from my standpoint, and I think it was the drive to be excellent all the time. And I think in life, when you're going to gamble, you've got to, or when you're going to go for greatness, when you're chasing greatness, you've got to take some calculated risk. And chasing greatness can be as simple as I want to have a great day today, and chasing greatness can be like, we're going to try this project and we're going to make this product. And if it works out, it could be really amazing and change something, or it might be a complete flop. And I think not being afraid of failure, people say it all the time, but you really have to believe in yourself and understand that I hate to fail, but failure's okay. If there's a young man that he and I in the show pig industry got into a big discussion about, he's like, dude, you can't get better if you don't fail. I'm like, I don't like failing. He's like, but you can't get better if you don't fail. And I think that, and I think that when you're going out there and you're trying to chase greatness, and again, greatness can be anything. I think that's really important for kids to go. I think that learning to go out there, you might find that first job and it might not be exactly what you want to do, but you can learn so much from it to make it a stepping stone into what is your career. And so I've always been willing to take a gamble, and people talk about it all the time. Like, I don't know how your family worked together. And we were very fortunate. I think it goes back to that whole business thing. It was a business during the day and we were family at night. And people say, gosh, I can't believe the risks you would take, financially, the time commitments. And I guess they never felt like risk because we were chasing greatness. We were chasing that belief in that we were making great products for people to enjoy every day.
Ah, so good, Doug. I love to hear you say that. I know that you and I both share this like passion for the next generation. And a lot of times people are just pretty down on this next group coming up. And as parents of kids in that generation, like, we don't want to hear that, do we? I believe in what they're capable of doing. They have tools and resources and opportunities available to them to take their big ideas and their big dreams lots of places. And we want to keep them in agriculture and we want to keep them in food and ag because it's so important that we have those minds there. And so I know that we've spent a lot of time talking about this just randomly and as friends over the years, but one of the things that you told me that I still remember from one of our former interviews, you said, if you want a career, and I'm not talking about a job, but a career, all you have to do is look at the food industry. If you want a rewarding career that can affect millions of people every day, this is one of the best. So I guess, what do you mean by this? How do you think that the food industry and agriculture can really draw in that next generation? And why do we need them to?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and I think that there's a really simple formula that we, as the older generation, if you will, owe the younger generation. And I think we need to engage the kids, the youth, the young adults, that the food industry is a great place to be. We need to educate them, and that's not just go to school. That is bring the team in, get on the whiteboard and talk through something, taste product around a table with a bunch of your peers and say, this is what I see, this is what I taste, and this is how we can make it better. And then empower them to make decisions. If we don't empower the next generation and we question everything they do, they're not going to do it the same way. And I think as we get older, it gets harder. But they are not going to do it the same way that it's been done in the past. We just hope that we've educated them on the past and we've engaged them to the point that when they get empowered to make that successful decision, they'll make it. And then we got to understand there's going to be failure. If you're out there chasing that dream, if you're out there chasing greatness, it doesn't matter if it's putting together a presentation or trying to find that next product. If we engage, educate, and empower youth, they will be successful. And the reason I would tell anyone that has decided to listen this long to this, that the food industry is a great place, is we will always have food be a place for family, a place for business, and the health piece of it is a growing interest in the space with young people. And if you want to impact what the future looks like, get involved with the food industry, get involved with the pork industry. There are careers everywhere. I mean, it is mind blowing. You go to these trade shows and you don't think about all the pieces of the puzzle that are careers in agriculture and careers in food. And I think that the pork industry is just ripe for opportunities of anyone that's interested, whether it be on the production, processing, sales, everything in between.
Well, to your point, there's a lot of ways that you can be involved in the industry, right? And so I think that it's important that we share all these different paths with young people. And I mean, let's face it, we can all change jobs anytime we want to, right? I mean, there's opportunities for all of us all along the path. And I know that, you have a lot of people of different ages who work for you guys and who found really rewarding careers in your business. And so I think it's exciting to think about how we help, to your point, empower the next generation to really see themselves here. And I just appreciate all you do to be out there and engaged with that next generation and to really help people understand what you guys do, because it's pretty awesome. Your story is. Do you have any closing thoughts, any final things you want to share about, if you had a chance to encourage somebody else right now, what might that be?
I think go for it. That's the message. If you have something you really enjoy, and it doesn't matter where it is, but specifically if it's in agriculture, I would say go for it. This last few years, I've been so inspired by some young adults because they've made a career change and they decided to go for something, and they're starting to see the success in that. And a lot of them I've been fortunate that a lot of them said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "This is the mistakes I made. These are the things I wish I would have done, or maybe wish I would have tried." And I think that everybody's path goes a reason, goes down a certain direction for a reason. But for the most part, from my perspective, go for it. I just chase greatness. I don't think you can do it enough.
Well, excellent advice. And I just want to say thank you. I know you're busy. It's hard to find time with you, Doug. I always enjoy it when we get a chance to sit down and chat. And thank you for joining us today. You can dive into more of the Pork Podcast on Farm Journal's YouTube channel, or you can listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Jennifer Scheich, finding the story behind the story.